written by John Berryman. John Berryman was an American poet who lived in the later half of the 20th century, and he was a confessional poet. John Berryman has written this very beautiful poem. He has created a beautiful imagery in this poem of a small boy who is playing with his ball, and while playing, his ball suddenly drowns in the water. The poet, he wants to help the child, he wants to offer him money, or he wants to offer him another ball. But suddenly he realizes that right at this very moment, the child must understand that such situations will always reoccur in his life, and he himself has to learn this lesson that nothing in this world is immortal and everything in this world has to end up someday. We have to part from our possessions someday or the other, and then one has to learn how to be strong enough, gather his courage, and start his journey of life all once again. So this is actually the gist of this poem. Now let us get started with the poem. What is the boy now who has lost his ball? The poet here says he just wonders that what is the condition of this boy who has just lost his ball, who has just parted with his ball. What is he to do? The poet wonders what this child will do now, because he has lost his ball forever. I saw it go. Maybe the poet was standing right beside the child and he was watching all this scenario in front of his eyes. I saw it go, merrily bouncing down the street and then merrily over. The poet saw the entire scenario when the child was playing with the ball. He was very happy when he was playing with the ball. And the ball also, the poet has used a personification of the ball here. He says that the ball was also seen merrily dancing, and the child was also very happy when he was playing with that ball. But suddenly, while they were both very happy, suddenly the ball, it went down the street, and then finally the ultimate happiness of the boy, it came to an end because his ball drowned into the water. This was an end to his happiness. No use to say, oh, there are other balls. The poet says that right now he can console the child. He can just tell him that there is no need to worry because he can get another ball for himself. But this was not an ordinary ball for the boy. He had spent his entire childhood playing with that ball. That ball had his childhood memories attached to him. That is why no other ball could take the place of that ball. And that is why it was just worthless to say to him that, oh, that he can just buy another ball rather than feeling the sorrow of the ball that had drowned. An ultimate shaking grief fixes the boy. Now the poet is explaining the situation, the feelings that the boy is undergoing right now. After just at the instance of losing his ball, the boy is completely grief-stricken. An ultimate shaking grief. He is completely grief-stricken, fixes the boy, and he is completely immovable because he has lost a very private possession of his life, a very loved thing of his life. And he stands rigid, trembling, staring down all his young days into the harbor. And the boy is just standing immovable, trembling because of the loss of his very dear ball. He is just shaking and trembling because of the loss he has faced, staring down, and he is just simply, he is completely immovable and he is just staring down at the point where his ball has just drowned over. All his young days into the harbor where his ball went, and the boy is completely staring down at the point where his ball has just drowned. All his young days into the harbor. Now this line, all his young days into the harbor, it signifies two things. First of all, I'll tell you what is the meaning of harbor. The harbor is a place where ships, after completing their journey, they come to get docked up. They end their journey at the harbor. And similarly, this ball, which was symbolic of the young days of the boy, has now gone into the harbor. It has ended its journey and it has drowned into the water. And the second meaning of this is the young days. It means that his young childhood innocence of the boy has now come to an end, and he is entering into a new phase of his life, that is the teenage, where his ball went. So the poet is just gazing at that place where his ball has just drowned. I would not intrude on him. The poet wanted to console the boy, but suddenly a flash of thought crosses his mind, and he decides that he will not interfere with the situation of the boy right at the moment, because he would let the boy himself learn the most important lesson of his life, that such situations will be common in his life when he will have to part with his most private possessions, and he will have to bear their loss and once again gather the courage to stand up once again. So he decides that he will not interfere with the sad situation of the boy. He will not interfere in his sad situation right now, and let him learn the lesson of life on his own. A dime, another ball, is worthless. The poet wants to console the child. He wants to offer him money to buy another ball, or he can also bring him another ball. But now he understands that either offering a money or asking him to get that he will buy another ball for him will be just a useless thing for him right now, because no other ball in the world can take the place of that ball which he has just lost, because that ball was not an ordinary ball for him. It was the ball with which he had shared his entire childhood. He had his entire childhood memories attached to that ball. So that ball was very dear to him, and no other ball can take its place. That is why offering him any sort of help at this time was just worthless, could not reduce his pain at all. Now he senses first responsibility in a world of possessions. Possessions are the things which you possess in your life, like your mobile phone, your books, your pens, etc. The things that you love. And the possessions are of two kinds. One is the materialistic possessions, which, like the mobile phones, your books, your pens, etc. And the other are your possessions in the form of your relations, your parents, your friends, your siblings. They all are also your private possessions, and everybody in the world has a great love attached to his possessions, for their personal private possessions. Now he senses first responsibility in the world of possessions, and the poet feels that today was the day when the child has learned, he has come across and is learning his first responsibility in this world of possessions. Today he has learned a very important lesson in his life, that whatever these possessions are, nothing in this world will last forever. Everything has to come to an end at some time or the other. So everybody has to part with his private possessions sometimes or the other. And this day has come in the life of this boy today. And today he is learning the most important lesson of his life, that he has to, everybody in this world has to bear the loss of losing the personal possessions at some time or the other in their lives. People will take balls. Balls will be lost always, little boy. So the balls here signify your private personal possessions. So he says that in this world, the possessions will not remain forever with anyone in this world. Everyone has to part with his personal possessions someday or the other. Maybe if it is a physical possession, then some people may steal it from you, they may break it. Or if they are the possessions in the form of your relations, your parents, your friends, your siblings, then they may be taken away by the destiny. It means that somebody who is very close to you may someday he may lose his life and die. So someday people will take balls will be lost always. So someday or the other, the personal possessions have to be parted from the person. So, and no one buys a ball back, and nobody in this world will be able to buy these personal possessions back, because these personal possessions, once they are lost, they will never come back to you. They will just remain in your memories, and then they will just remain in your memories, and then you will step one step forward in your life. Money is external. Money is external. This is a very important phrase, that money is external. Money is external means that money can just buy physical things. You can buy things like your mobile, your bottle, or your teddy bear, or anything that you really like, you really love. You can buy those things with money. But can you buy your emotions? No. Money cannot buy the emotions, the internal feelings of a person. Money cannot buy love, it cannot buy happiness, it cannot buy care. It means that money can buy just physical things. It is not able to buy the internal emotions of the mankind. He is learning well behind his desperate eyes. And desperate eyes means hopelessness. And today, this boy standing hopelessly right in front of the place where he has just lost his ball, is learning this very important lesson of his life, that money is just an external object which can buy just materialistic things for you, and it cannot buy any sort of emotions for you, and it cannot bring back those emotions which one has lost, or it cannot bring back those personal possessions which somebody has lost in this world sometime or the other. He is learning well behind his desperate eyes the epistemology of loss. Epistemology means the feeling of how it is. What is the feeling of loss? It is the feeling that how one feels when he loses something. So right, hopelessly standing in front of the place where he has lost his ball, he is learning this very important epistemology of loss, this very important lesson of loss in one's life, how to stand up. And he is also, today, this loss has also made him stronger than before. Today he is learning the lesson of how it feels when somebody loses something. And also he is learning that after losing something, how a person has to overcome all his sufferings, all his miseries, and then he has to gather the courage to stand up once again and start his journey afresh. Knowing what every man must one day know. And today he is knowing those things which every man has to face someday or the other. It means that every man in the world has to learn this important lesson in his life, that nothing in this life will remain forever. The things that he possesses today will be lost someday or the other. So he will have to learn to bear the loss of those things and to overcome those sufferings and gather his courage and start afresh the journey of his life. And most know many days how to stand up. And once when a person grows from his childhood to his adulthood, he comes across many such situations which teach him this very lesson of his life, that he has to gather courage, he has to bear the loss of the private possessions of his life, and then he has to stand up and move ahead in his life. And in this, there is also one thing, that his young days, the young days of the boy, the young childhood innocence of this boy is now lost forever, and he is entering into his teenage stage. Now, there are certain literary devices also, and I will tell you about the literary devices also. The first literary device used in this poem is the repetition. You see, the repetition of the words is followed in this poem, like the words like what, they are repeated again and again. Then the words are the balls. So the word ball has been repeated, and this is the technique of repetition. The next one is the technique of imagery, where the images are created and it appears as if some video is started in front of your eyes. So the imagery technique is used when the poet says the ball as merrily bouncing. The word merrily bouncing, it shows you the imagery. Here imagery technique is used. The next technique is the anaphora. Anaphora is the literary device in which there is a repetition of words in the beginning of consecutive lines. Like if you see the second line, the first line as what, and again in the second line we see what, and that is the technique of anaphora. Similarly, in the third and fourth line, you see the words merrily, which is repeated. So this is again the technique of anaphora. Yes. Next is the technique of alliteration. Alliteration is a technique in which some words which are close together, they start with a similar letter or a similar sound. Like in this, you see buys a ball back. You see that all these words, they start with the consonant B. So all these words are lying close to one another and they are starting with a similar letter B. Then we see that there is no rhyme scheme in this poem. So with this, we come to an end for this poem, and I hope you would have understood the poem quite better. Okay, that's all for today. Okay, bye.
Don't forget to like, share and subscribe my channel.